At any rate, our program today is Captain James Fryhoff, who started his new position as our Chief of Police on February 12th. And he originally started in Ojai in I have 1990 in my notes, but you said it was a little bit later.
Yeah, 1990 with the Sheriff's Office, 1994 in Ojai.
Yeah. So, at any rate, and he's replacing Dave Kinney, who now oversees Special Services Unit with the Sheriff's Department. So, at any rate, I'll let him do a little bit more of his own introduction. Please welcome Captain James Fryhoff.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here to this Rotary group as well. I think the last time I was at this Rotary meeting, I was a sergeant working for the sheriff, and I was setting up a PowerPoint slide for him. I remember we met here first thing in the morning. He's like, we got to be there early. So we came at 6:30, got everything set up, and then when we were done, we went and played a round of golf here because it's a beautiful course. So I didn't bring my clubs today to take up on that. But as stated in the introduction, I started with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office in 1990, and like all good deputies, I spent the first 3.5 years of my career in the jail. I got released in 1994 and was sent to the Ojai Valley, and it was my first time ever even being in the Ojai Valley. I grew up in Southern California and Los Angeles area. I was actually born and raised in Pasadena, and so I wasn't even familiar with Ojai at all. But during that time I was here for about 4 years as a deputy, I just fell in love with the valley. I just absolutely loved it. It's beautiful. I just enjoyed the people, the diversity that we have here. It was just amazing. It was a great experience as a young officer. I was promoted from here, and I actually stayed still in the valley. I went to the Honor Farm for a couple years, for those that remember the Honor Farm when it still existed off of Highway 150. I worked there for 2 years and then moved on to Camarillo and Thousand Oaks and worked several other places within the Sheriff's Office and worked investigations and special enforcement and administration, crime prevention. So I had a lot of different duties in my 27 years. But when Dave was getting promoted and there was an opportunity to come to Ojai, I said I would love to come back to Ojai. So myself and another captain interviewed with the city manager here for the position, and the other captain I was competing with for the position is also a fantastic person. Romano Bassi is a fantastic captain. The general area of Ojai would have done well with him as well. But one of the things the city manager had said that really tipped the scale in my favor was that I had worked here before as a deputy, and I really knew the layout of the land. I knew the community really well. And so he was willing to give me another shot at coming back here and leading the station. Most of you know that we have a very small station as far as the police department goes. We have 30 officers out of our station. Only 2 patrol the city at a time. So we have the city's divided in half, and so we have 2 cars that patrol the city, and then I have 3 that patrol the unincorporated area, which is really from Rose Valley to Stanley. So everything between Rose Valley and Stanley and 33 is the unincorporated area, and also a little bit to the east over to the summit. In addition to that, we were talking earlier that I also have oversight of a larger area because I have also the Lockwood Valley, and Frazier Park falls under the command of the Ojai Station as well. And I have 2 deputies that live in Lockwood Valley with their spouses. Their spouse is their dispatcher, and they take turns covering the valley. And if there's a call in the middle of the night when they're not working, then they get dressed and go out and respond to the call. So there's a different way of policing in that region, but it amounts to about 620 square miles that is overseen by the captain position here at the Ojai Station. Obviously, I spend a lot of my duties here in the city. Obviously I attend all the city council meetings, except last week I was on vacation. I didn't attend that one, but generally I attend all the council meetings. And like I said, it's been a quick 6 months. These 6 months have come by in a flash. I can't believe it's already been 6 months, and I just have loved every bit of it. The community is very well receiving of law enforcement here. We do have our challenges like any other municipality in the world. Some of the things that we focus on here in the Valley that I'm sure you've read a lot about recently is our substance abuse issues, which are not specific to Ojai, right? This is a national epidemic that we're facing. methamphetamine, heroin, prescription pills, all of it. And it's a very challenging venture for all of us. And some of the things that have changed a little bit is the sentencing for those who are arrested for being under the influence of controlled substances. They don't do as long in jail any longer as they used to. Most of them get turned out right away. One thing that most people probably don't know, because we don't do a very good job of advertising it, is that we have some of the best recovery programs in our jail facilities. We have Alcoholics Anonymous, we have Narcotics Anonymous programs in the jail, that when the inmates are in there long enough to get sober and realize that they might want help, then we offer the classes so that hopefully when they transition out, they can maintain that program of attending those meetings to stay clean. Because those who have ever had to deal with addiction realize that it's a very, very powerful thing to overcome. And that's why they attend meetings every day, is that they really need that support to be able to stay clean. So in my travels with the Sheriff's Office, I had an opportunity to attend the FBI National Academy. Those that are not familiar with that, it's a 10-week course in Quantico, Virginia, that I attended in 2015, so 2 years ago. So I spent 10 weeks of my summer away from my family and was in Virginia with 225 officers from 23 countries talking about policing in the world and what we can do, what we can share with one another. And one of the classes that I took had to do with communicating with officers in crisis. Well, it was really more of a 10-week AA/NA course taught by an FBI agent who's a recovering alcoholic, and he brought in all kinds of specialists to talk about addiction, talk about support, and talk about what it takes to help somebody who is in need of treatment. And kind of opened my eyes a lot, and not only internally looking at our own agency, because we're not immune to anything like the society has to offer, but we are also in a position where we should at least know what options are available and how to guide people towards those options the best that we can. During the class, I attended an AA meeting, so if I ever come across somebody, whether it's at work or otherwise, that is afraid to go, doesn't really want to go, at least I know I've been before, and I can take them and say, listen, it's not the boogeyman, you can attend, I'll go with you, because now I know how to look to find one online, I know how to find the classes that we can go to, and really opened my eyes to a different way of addressing addiction. So I know a lot of people say that people that use drugs don't belong in jail, but the reality is, while they're there, they get sober, and there is treatment available for them there. It's not just that they're locked up to not do anything. So I just think it's important for people to understand that that's really our goal, is when we're arresting people for substance abuse, is so that it guides them towards treatment. So because we know if they go to treatment, that everybody that's had a friend or a loved one that's fallen into addiction, they know that they're not the same person when they're under the influence as they are when they're clean. And so we want to just get people clean and get them back to being productive again. Some of the other recent challenges that we've been facing that I spoke about at a couple of meetings had to do with immigration enforcement. And what does that look like now in the new era of this administration? And our policy for the Sheriff's Office hasn't changed at all. We don't ask people's immigration status for a lot of reasons. But the biggest one is, if there are people in our community that are fearful that we're looking to deport them, they won't call us when they've been the victim of a crime. So we would create this whole community of people out there that would be afraid to call law enforcement, adding to the number of victims that we could have. So we let the federal agents handle immigration enforcement, and we handle just policing. That way, victims are victims, we treat them as victims, and we don't ask them, we don't care where they're from or what their status is as far as legally in the country or not. We need to have a relationship with our community that knows that we're here to protect and serve all of them, regardless of how they got here. Now, if they've been arrested for an offense, the federal, immigration enforcement does have access to the records of people who are foreign born, and then they can do their own investigation to determine whether or not that they're going to take action or if the person needs to be deported or not. But that's on the immigration side, and once again, that's not anything that we local law enforcement have to do with. And I believe that all of the chiefs have agreed, for all the non-contract cities included, Simi and Oxnard and Ventura, all operate under the same premise, that we have a duty to serve our community regardless of what their status is. So I know that when I was talking about coming here, I think it was one of the things that they wanted addressed was to make sure that people knew why it is that we weren't going after people that were here not here legally. And it's just because the moment we start doing that, we lose that community's trust in being able to call us when they need help, and we just can't afford that. We can't have a portion of our community that's afraid to call us. Personally speaking, so I'm married. I've got two daughters. They're 10 and 13. One's entering 8th grade, and one's going into 5th. They're both excited to looking forward to going back to school. My wife is a teacher also, and I can guarantee that she puts way more hours in than she gets paid for. She's there early, she's there late, she's there on weekends setting her classroom up. This is the week before school starts, and her school is a private school, and the rooms get used for a lot of other things other than school. And so every time she starts, she's got to reset the classroom up and reclaim the classroom to get it ready for the students. And pretty much every weekend it gets used as well. And so every weekend it's the same routine. Saturday or Sunday she's got to make a couple hours time to go in and get her classroom ready for the kids again. But I live in Simi Valley, so it's a little bit of a trek here every day, but I wasn't being punished by being sent here. Like I said, the sheriff had asked who was interested in coming, and I said I'd love to come back to the valley. I love being here. It's great to be the chief. I have a really good staff. We don't have a lot of us, right? I was talking earlier that I came from Thousand Oaks as the assistant chief out there for the last 5 years, and I had a lot more personnel that could help with things, and I spent a lot more administrative duties. Time, where I had time to dedicate to administrative duties. Well, in Ojai, I have 5 patrol officers out there and 2 detectives. If we're serving a search warrant, there's a good chance that I'm going to be involved in the search warrant. And so I've been on several search warrants now as the chief, where I keep my car equipped with all the equipment. I have a helmet, I have a rifle, I have my vest, I have all the things that I need to do police work. And because at the end of the day, we're all policemen first, and then we have our duties beyond that. So anyway, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me to come here this morning. I'm happy to answer any questions you all have about what policing in Ojai is like, or what our challenges are. I think like I said, our biggest challenge is substance abuse, not just here regionally, but nationally. That's an issue that we all have to deal with. The crimes that are created because of substance abuse are our biggest challenge. Theft of mail, identity theft. We had one of the search warrants I did just a couple weeks ago was on an identity theft case where the people were passing forged checks. We had 117 victims that we identified. So if you've ever been the victim of identity theft, you know that it takes about 400 hours to get your credit squared away after somebody has stolen your identity. So it becomes a huge effort on a victim's part to send copies of the police report to all the different credit bureaus and the credit card companies and the businesses that your information was used at. So it was a good case. Our detectives did a great job in working on that, but like I said, I still get to get out and do law enforcement occasionally, which I enjoy. With like Steve and I talked about earlier, when he and I worked in Ojai together years ago when I was here for my first stretch, and we were running calls back then, and I would have never imagined in my wildest dreams that I'd be back here as the chief, but I'm thrilled as all get out to be here.
You probably never imagined you would be in jail.
So yeah, Steve and I go way back. Like I said, we used to run calls together, so we've known each other for a very, very long time, and it's been a great experience being here, and I'm looking forward to hopefully a good stay. And like I said, I just love it here. Just love it here. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any suggestions for us on how to prevent identity theft?
Yeah, so I would say the best things you can do is making sure that you don't put things in your mail that are going to be left out unattended. A lot of times our thieves are stealing mail that's going out, whether it's checks that are in the mail to go to people you're paying, or birthday gifts that are going out. The crooks are ripping through those, and it used to be that you only had to worry about the one check being used, where they would just they would bleach it out and then reuse that one check. But now with computers and printers, they're creating additional checks just using the information that's on it, and so it becomes the gift that keeps on giving for our victims. The other thing is just pay attention to your credit, all your credit card charges, your debit card. With online banking, it's very easy to just monitor your charges, and if you see something that's suspicious at all, make sure you report it right away. For those who are shopping, if you're leaving a wallet or a bag or a purse in your cart, just be aware that there's groups of people that are out there intentionally trying to distract you so they can take your wallet out of your purse. And then with that, you've got your driver's license, your credit cards, and all your information. So keep your purses zipped up. Don't leave your wallet easily accessible. If somebody asks you to reach something because they can't reach it, look around to make sure there's not somebody else behind you that's grabbing it, because often they work in pairs or even in tandem with others. So just guarding your property the best you can. And like I said, if you're mailing something out, pay attention to what when you're putting it in the mail, or take it to the local post office. And same thing, if you're receiving mail, don't let it sit in the post, in the mailbox for hours on end. If you know you're going to be gone on vacation, have it diverted to the post office and just collect it when you get back, or have a neighbor that you trust get it for you. Bless you. So those are the things you can do, but the best thing is really guarding your information the best you can, and then paying attention to online charges to make sure that your information is not compromised. One of the trends that we see a lot right now is skimmers in gas stations. I don't know if you're familiar with this problem, but there's groups that are putting skimmers in, you can't even see them there. So it's very hard to prevent. You slide your card in, and now they've captured your information because it's got a reader inside the machine, and it's sent via Bluetooth to somebody's computer, so they don't even have to come back and retrieve the device, and all your information then is sent digitally to the suspects, who then recreate credit cards with your information on it. So it's a very challenging time for law enforcement, for sure, because of technology has benefited the criminal element a lot, and we're doing our best to play catch up. The chips do help in the places where chips are used, but right now, like at gas pumps, they're not using the chip at all. It's still just a regular magnetic strip, and all the information's on the magnetic strip, and it's being copied. So they can just still use that information to make purchases. Yes, sir. Yes, in Camarillo, for those that saw the press release, there was a gas station owner who had cameras up, and he was monitoring and saw that there was people there at the gas station after hours doing something, called it into law enforcement, who went out there and caught them. They had the skimmers in their possession. They were all crooks out of Glendale area. So it was good to catch them. But that's one small group and a huge group of crooks that are traveling all over, because it's a very profitable business to be in. And it's it's one of those crimes that doesn't come with a lot of jail time because there's no violence associated with it. So it's not when you're looking at risk reward, if you're in the criminal element, you're not holding a gun to somebody's head. Generally, there's no direct witness to it, and it's very profitable. And then if you do get caught, the sentences are very limited. So if you're...
Would it be better to have a gas company credit card rather than use your MasterCard?
So the advantage of having the gas card is that the only place that they can use it is a gas station. Now, what we had recently with these skimmers is that's exactly where they were using it, was at a gas stations. They were filling up trucks that were loaded with huge diesel tanks, and they were filling them up to the tune of $500 at a shot. That were going on people's credit cards. So the advantage is it only affects that. If you're using your debit card, the disadvantage is it's coming directly out of your account, and if you're using that to pay your bills as well, and somebody compromises your account and all your checks bounce or your payments don't go through, then you're having to try and negotiate your way out of all the overage fees and late fees and all that other stuff too. So yeah, there's things you can do to help mitigate that being one of them. Yes, sir.
I've had a couple of problems in the past with credit card fraud, but I've only known of it because the credit card company called me and said, "How can you do this?" How often do they catch it that way?
The credit card companies are getting a lot better at catching things where we're very much creatures of habit, right? I mean, there's no doubt we are creatures of habit. And the moment you start using your credit card differently or in other places is usually a red flag for them. I know I got called and they said, "Have you eaten at Applebee's?" And it was like Minnesota, and I go, no, I had not even been to Minnesota. So they were like, "Okay, well, we're going to send you a new credit card and cancel it." But yeah, I was caught by them, and I checked my statement almost daily. So I mean, they were able to call within the day that it was used, and then put a stop on the card, because it's in their best interest also. Obviously, I think most credit card companies will excuse you of any of the debt that's created by an identity thief. We all pay for it anyway, right? We pay for it in the way of interest rates and stuff like that. That's how they get their money back, right? So they're going to get it back from us, but that's one of the ways they do it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just a little bit of information. One of the ways that you can find a scanner at a gas station is if you turn Bluetooth on your phone and you scan for nearby devices. Your phone can sometimes find the scanner. It'll be like a long string of numbers. So if you find one of those, go to the gas station attendant and make sure they know that they're going to be one of the gas stations.
Great advice. Yes, sir.
And there's a phone call that everybody here, I think, has gotten. This is the IRS. You're going to go to jail unless you call this number right now.
Right.
They give a number. Isn't there anything that law enforcement can do about that?
So yeah, unfortunately, most of those calls are coming from overseas, and so a lot of times what happens is we end up working very closely with the FBI, who works with other partners around the world to combat that. There was a couple of people recently arrested for that in another country, but the problem is, much like the guys that came up from Glendale, there's a never-ending string of them, because there's a never-ending group of people that will fall victim to it because they're afraid. And so, they prey on fear and then making you make bad decisions on time. Same thing with the grandchild case, your grandson's in jail, if you want him to get released right now, you need to mail his bail money over here right away, and if you don't do it in the next hour, he's going to get transferred to this other facility, and they don't have time to make a phone call to verify where the grandson is at, and people are wiring either money or they're going and buying iTunes gift cards. Now, I don't know that the IRS has ever accepted iTunes gift cards for payment, but people are so fearful of the threat of going to jail or having the federal government after them, or anybody after them for that matter, that they're willing to do anything to get that off their plate. So when in doubt, call us, and we'll, and also for people that say you've won the Canadian lottery. If you've never played the Canadian lottery, you're not winning it. Just so you know. So that's some of the things that we face. It's a gimmick. It's done to either, number one, say something good that you stand to get, and people are hopeful for that, or to create fear and then put you on a timeline to react so that you don't make a good decision. So just be aware of those things. The IRS is never going to call you and threaten to take you to jail. You'll receive some certified mail that says that you need to make an appointment with your local IRS office, my guess, more so. Same thing with law enforcement. If you've got a warrant for your arrest, we're not going to call and say, if you pay this now, we're going to come get you. We're not going to call you ahead of time. We're just going to come get you. So if you got a warrant, go take care of it, and otherwise, we may be knocking on your door. But you'll know us because we'll be in uniform. Yes, sir.
You were mentioning the substance abuse in Ojai, and what are you seeing as the big thing, the problem right now?
So for us, it's the big three. It's opiates, it's methamphetamine, and prescription pills. There's a lot of dangerous stuff that's out there right now, fentanyl being one of them. There's a lot of fentanyl being produced overseas. It's 400 times stronger than heroin, and it's being laced with other drugs, and so we're seeing a lot of overdoses for people that are unsuspecting that has it in the drugs that they are using. So I'm sure you've noticed that we've had an uptick in overdose deaths, and I suspect that we'd have way more overdose deaths, but we have Narcan, which is an opiate interrupter that when the medics show up on scene, they give the person an injection, and it stops the process or the effects of the opiate drug so that they can start breathing again. Because a lot of times what happens is that the opiate slows their system down so much they just stop breathing, and then they ultimately die. So those are some of the things that we're seeing. And our tool for combating that, obviously, is officers are trained to determine if somebody's under the influence of narcotics. And they do that by a variety of ways, based on how the person is acting, the physical signs that they're seeing, their pulse, their pupils. They have a whole process that we take people through to determine if they're under the influence or not. And the decision at that point is made by the officer in the field, saying, okay, their pulse is high, their pupils are dilated, they're not reacting, they're not able to estimate time, they're fidgeting, they have residue in their nose, you name it, all these different things that we're trained to look for. And if they think they're under the influence, they'll place them under arrest. Say, I think you're under the influence of whatever it is they think they're under the influence of, and they'll take them to either the station or to the jail to get a urine sample. Now, part of that determines on who we're arresting. If it's a male officer arresting a male suspect, they'll go to the nearest facility and get a urine sample. If it's a male officer arresting a female, then they have to go where the next female officer is, which during the daytime, I have a female detective. They can go here to the station. After hours, if we don't have a female working on night, then they got to go to the main jail where they always have female deputies working, get a urine sample. If the urine comes back clean, we release the person and fill out a certificate. It's called a detention certificate. It just says that this is a detention only, but for all intents, you were arrested. You were handcuffed, you were taken to the jail, you were given a urine sample. We fill out a form that says this was not an arrest, so it doesn't go on your arrest record. And then the person's off, we give them an opportunity. Would you like to go home? We'll take you home if you want to ride, and we'll take it back. But, more often than not, when we identify somebody who's under the influence, it's proven that they're under the influence. On occasion, we've had people that have been arrested that are not under the influence. And it's just, unfortunately, that's currently the nature of our business. Is we do the best we can based on looking at identifying the symptoms, and the officer has to make a determination of whether or not they think the person's under the influence. So that's what we do. And so that begins hopefully the track for them to get treatment, right? We were hoping that at that point, that's the low, that's the bottom that they're hitting, where they say, this is not the life that I want to live, and I need to get into treatment. That's what we're hoping. Yes, sir.
A few years ago, there was a lot of local concern about sort of the incipient gang problem in Ojai, and I never hear about that anymore. What changed and if it went away? What caused it to go away?
So I'm sure a couple things cause gangs to kind of swell and dissipate, and it has to do with like really the age demographic of those who are inclined to participate in gangs. We find that, you know, somewhere between 12 and about 25 is where they're active. Once they outgrow it, they decide they've either had their own families now and decide they don't want to go spend days in jail or be on probation or act a fool anymore. And so whenever there's that absence of that age demographic is part of it. I know that the Captain Kenny was here, and I know he dealt with some of the gang issues and arrested a lot of the offenders, and most of them either moved away or have remained quiet. I noticed the other day when I was driving through Oakview that there was some tagging on some walls down there, so I know we're not absent of gangs. So we do have an officer, Deputy Ebel, who's been identified as our gang officer, that it's going to be his job to go identify who our current gang members are and make sure that we hold them accountable for any crimes that they do commit. So it's currently not one of our challenges, knock on wood. But we don't ever ignore those type of signs. You know, as soon as you start seeing graffiti, it's a problem. And so we're going to be on it.
So they basically grew up.
Yeah, some of it's they grew up. Some of it is truly they just grew up. Got tired of getting arrested. Some of them are in jail or in prison for long periods of time. You just see an ebb and flow of it. And, you know, fortunately in the Valley, we're fortunate for a lot of reasons here. It's very difficult for outside influences to negatively affect the Valley, because I only take 3 officers to shut down the entire Valley. 150, 33, 150, and you're not getting out of here. You're not getting out of here. So you want to come up and commit a crime, we're going to catch you. So people don't come here because they don't want to get caught. And so I think we're very in a good place for that, and we also have a good public that pays attention. You know who belongs and who doesn't, and people are not hesitant to call and let us know, hey, there's somebody here that doesn't look right, they're acting suspicious, I know they're not my neighbor and they're sitting in front of my neighbor's yard, and they call in. And so as long as we maintain that type of relationship with our community, we're going to be in great shape. Steve?
Jim, what's the status of the Ojai Clubhouse in Casita Springs? Is that shut down, or are they still active in there?
I don't think it's shut down, but I have not seen any activity there recently, and I'm not sure why we haven't seen any activity there recently, or if they're just reassessing where they want to stake claim to a home. Obviously, the HA has had a presence in the Valley for many years, but just like any other group that is creating problems for our community, we enforce everything we can against them.
So, just not a question, but a comment observation. I have known him for years. I don't think the sheriff could have made a better choice than putting him in this position. And I congratulate you, and I think the city is well served. So.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. All right.
I got the cup in hand, so you're done.
Right on. Thank you.
James, please, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we look forward to seeing lots of you in the coming years.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you.